It's just tragedy, horror, and tragedy.
More grim discoveries in the rubble of the ghost ship warehouse.
33 of 36 victims identified, but with answers come anguish.
Today is the day that more than 24 families are going to start an entirely new life.
And calls for action.
Owner needs to go to jail, and whoever else was leading this, they need to be prosecuted, period.
Because this is my community.
As survivors recount horrific moments inside the so-called tinderbox.
I could just see the flames coming, and then it just engulfed the front archway of my studio.
And tonight, we are learning more about the 36 people who were unable to make it out of that raging inferno. A teacher, a musician, and a 17-year-old student among the lives lost. Investigators still trying to determine the cause and exactly who's responsible. Good evening. I'm Sincere Tonsel.
And I'm Ty Steele. Thanks for being with us tonight. The ghost ship warehouse fire now marking the deadliest building fire in more than a decade. Here's what we know right now. 36 people are confirmed dead. 33 of them have been identified. The Alameda County Sheriff's Office says searchers don't see any other bodies and they don't expect the death toll to jump much higher. But the Alameda District Attorney says a criminal investigation has been launched into the fire, and they've already interviewed several people connected to the ghost ship. The DA also says criminal charges could range from murder to involuntary manslaughter. Right now, however, the mayor says the focus remains on the victims.
Our priorities as a city remain, number one, to recover these victims and to run a 24/7 recovery effort until every victim has been found.
And here's a look inside. This afternoon, investigators released pictures of the warehouse showing just how big of a scene they're actually dealing with right now. Firefighters have the painstaking task of going through all of that debris, looking for victims, more victims, while maintaining a crime scene. And our team coverage begins with Fox 40's Joe Khalil. Joe, we understand someone could be facing criminal charges in connection with this fire.
Yeah, Ty, that's right. While this is a search and rescue effort still, investigators are now starting to approach the warehouse behind us as a crime scene, and questions are being asked now as to who's criminally responsible for what happened here Friday night. As people in this Fruitvale community in Oakland continue to mourn, questions still remain. Could this tragedy have been prevented? And if so, who's responsible for the dozens of lives lost?
The range of charges could be murder all the way to involuntary manslaughter.
At a news conference Monday, District Attorney Nancy O'Malley said investigators in her office are treating the warehouse as a potential crime scene.
We're looking at two things. One is whether or not there is any criminal liability attached to this fire. And secondly, if there is criminal liability, against whom?
The building itself was cited 5 times since 2014 for having garbage and debris around it, and for being unlivable despite evidence people did live there. The unlicensed art collective and living space operated by a man named Derek Ion Almina, according to many who live there. Almina is currently on probation for an arrest in 2015 for receiving stolen property, not long after 2 different people filed harassment suits against him. Court records show Almina lost custody of his children in 2015, Protective Services sending them to live with relatives in Southern California.
He has offered quite a few people a place to live, and most of them defaulted on the rent.
Despite his legal trouble, Almina still operated Ghost Ship, according to Alexander Doré, a musician who spent time there. It was a place, he says, artists of all kinds shared their talents and lived together, despite the obvious hazards.
As I said, I was concerned about fire risks and exits myself.
Doré says large events happen there often, but he doesn't blame Almina for the fire.
And I'm sure, he's just as traumatized by this as anyone else.
Almina's fate, as well as that of the building's owners, now lie in the hands of the Alameda County District Attorney. Now, we did try to reach out to Almina, Derek Ion, as he's been known to some of the artists here. Couldn't get a hold of him today. District Attorney mentioned some potential charges that somebody could face in relation to this fire. She says that she's not ruling out the possibility of even additional charges once this investigation continues. Reporting live in Oakland, Joe Khalil, Fox 40 News.
Still so much more to go through, Joe. Thanks a lot for that report. Meantime, the owner of the building, Chor Ing, has remained quiet since the fire. The operator, Derek Almina, has reportedly left town after receiving death threats on social media. Now, before he left town, he and his wife were spotted at the Oakland Marriott City Center, where he addressed the media to talk about the lives lost.
They're my children. They're my friends, they're my family, they're my loves, they're my future. What else do I have to say?
And a little more about Almina. Tonight we're learning he faced an eviction lawsuit by a previous landlord back in 2014.
And we want to give you a look at what it looked like inside that ghost ship warehouse before this devastating, fatal fire. Here are some pictures that the ghostship.com posted themselves. You can see here, taking a look at this, several guitars here on the ground, 2 of maybe 25 pianos people have reported being inside. You can see a ladder here up to the 2nd floor, that dubious 2nd floor that's been reported as illegal construction. Taking a look at some other pictures, another piano. In this particular studio space, we've got couches, we've got a lot of pillows, another ladder going up to that 2nd floor there. Taking a look at this wider shot here, you can see all of the musical equipment piled around, and just adding to that debris layer that firefighters talked about when they got into this particular space and were trying to put that fire out. We've also heard that there was just one shower for the 10 to 20 people living inside, and that it was heated by propane heaters.
So-called tinderbox, easy to see from those pictures. And we're hearing from survivors. One inside the warehouse when the flames sparked is now sharing his harrowing ordeal to save himself and his pets.
I just grabbed my dogs and kind of broke through the front of my space. By the time I was through the front doors, I could just see the flames coming, and then it just engulfed the front archway of my studio.
Jose Avalo says he was in bed in another part of the warehouse when he heard people shouting about the fire. He says about 20 people lived inside that building.
And as we've been reporting, at least 36 people did not make it out alive.
And the loss of neighbors, artists, musicians, students is hitting an entire community. Fox 40's Allie Wolf joins us live in Oakland at a memorial for the victims tonight as they mourn this unthinkable loss. Allie?
That's right, Ty. You know, this is one of the deadliest fires ever in Oakland, but to this community, it is the loss of neighbors, of friends, and of family members. And so, as you can see behind me, there's one memorial here. There are others throughout this area as people continue to stream by these, leaving flowers, crying, and honoring the lives of those who were killed. Steps away from the deadly ghost ship fire that left a hole in this Oakland community, there is unity, love, and healing.
The city is full of artists. We can't lose the artists. And so many of them died. It's just too much.
Jodelle de Oliveira cries over the deaths of dozens of strangers, artists, students, and musicians who brought vibrance to her neighborhood.
He was a very wonderful singer. He had a beautiful voice.
Merlina Moore lovingly leaves flowers for her great-nephew Draven McGill. The 17-year-old is the son of an Alameda County Sheriff's deputy and so far the youngest person to die in this weekend's massive fire during a party at this converted warehouse.
He's got 2 sisters that love him dearly and a mom and dad that I don't think they'll ever get over all this.
Chris Dotson leaves yellow flowers, remembering the talented members of his community killed during the ghost ship gathering.
These folks were committed artists, musicians, friends, very talented, vibrant, interesting, diverse people.
Dotson describes the converted warehouse. It was a place which he says accepted all races, religions, and sexualities, giving them a place to share their love of art and electronic music.
It was this convoluted kind of maze of just stuff, everything from pianos to mannequin arms to pallets and couches and little stagecoaches and just everything you can think of.
Still, some neighbors, frustrated at the huge loss of life, cast judgment on the building they call an eyesore.
They trampled over each other, and then the top fell into the bottom. They didn't stand a chance.
Strong emotions as a community grapples with tragedy. This memorial on the side of the road attracts people of all walks of life who are disturbed, devastated, and united in grief. And also at some of these memorials, we saw some people offering grief counseling and also just a shoulder to cry on for everyone who is mourning and extremely saddened by this large loss of life in this community here in Oakland. Also tonight, there's a large vigil planned at Lake Merritt where thousands are expected to come out and grieve. Live in Oakland, Allie Wolf, Fox 40 News.
Allie, thank you. And there's also an LED candlelight vigil for the Oakland warehouse fire victims happening tonight in Sacramento. People are planning to gather at the Capitol tonight, 8 o'clock, to honor those who died and also show support and solidarity for the city of Oakland.
President Obama is offering prayers to those affected by the fire. He issued a statement that reads in part, Oakland is one of the most diverse and creative cities in our country. And as families and residents pull together in the wake of this awful tragedy, they will have the unwavering support of the American people. Governor Brown spoke out about the tragedy as he introduced California's next Attorney General. The governor saying now is not the time to draw any larger conclusions about housing in the state.
I'm not going to try to draw some larger conclusion about whether it be warehouses or housing or affordability. I think I don't think the situation lends itself to that.
We will hear more from Congressman Xavier Becerra coming up tonight at 6. And we are, of course, keeping track of all the new developments in this fire investigation. Just go to our Fox 40 app and search Oakland for the latest.